Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this exciting launch event for the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tour. My name is Damilola Ogumbi. I am the CEO and the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All. I'm honored to be joined by His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and grateful to the federal government of Nigeria for their partnership with Sustainable Energy for All and for their bold ambition in making much needed commitments towards universal access and net zero. Also from the Nigerian government, I'm pleased to have with us today the Honorable Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, the Honorable Minister of State for Power, Godi Jedi Agba, Honorable Minister of State for Environment, Sharon Ikeazo, and last but not least, the Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, Ahmed Salehijo. We will also be hearing from Ricardo Puluti, Vice President of Infrastructure at the World Bank, and Dr. Rajesh Shah, President of the Rockefeller Foundation, whose support has been critical to this work. Lastly, I'm delighted that we will be hearing from the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Amida J. Mohammed, who has been unwavering in her support for a just and equitable energy transition that leaves no one behind. So thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to open to give you some of my experiences. In my previous roles in Nigeria as the General Manager of the Lagos State Electricity Board, and also as the Managing Director of the Federal Rural Electrification Agency, my main focus was to execute sustainable energy solutions across the country. And I have experienced firsthand the role that data-driven decision-making plays in implementing successful projects. Nigeria has seen tremendous growth in the energy sector. The launch today ties in all the progress and positions us to accelerate further growth and development for our country. Being the largest African economy, Nigeria holds a critical place in our collective global ambition to achieve our net zero targets. However, we cannot get to net zero unless we first address our energy access challenges. When we think about access to energy, we must look beyond merely solar lanterns or basic lighting. We must provide energy for growth, which is sufficient electricity to power households, modern appliances, businesses, livelihoods, healthcare, schools, and so much more. We must also include access to clean cooking solutions, which is often ignored in energy planning. The Nigerian Integrated Energy Planning Tool that we're launching today supports the federal government of Nigeria's vision to achieve universal energy access by 2030. The platform provides an integrated approach to energy access planning, taking advantage of all available energy solutions and showcasing the most affordable and sustainable pathway for energy development. While traditional energy plans focus largely on electrification, this tool also includes clean cooking, productive use, and other energy-enabled services, making it an exemplar of a world-class integrated energy planning tool. This tool will also contribute towards the country's net zero commitment by 2060, which was announced at COP26, and supports the country's development priorities, which are lifting people out of poverty, driving economic growth, and creating new jobs. We will soon hear about the flagship tool and its hopes to serve and demonstrate from us at SEforALL our commitment to working not only with Nigeria, but other development countries to achieve our goals for SDG 7 by 2030. Once again, I'd like to thank the federal government of Nigeria for just their amazing partnership, and the Rockefeller Foundation, and also the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet for their support, with special thanks to one of their team members, Joe Nganga, for his support. In addition, Our analytical and technical partners, McKinsey and Company, and Frame, have been instrumental throughout this process. And I can't end these opening remarks without thanking my own team, especially Nishant, Maya, Ingrid, Jem, just for all their hard work to getting us to this point. So I'm really happy for us to start now. And I'd like to hand over to Adam Candle, partner at McKinsey & Company, who were our technical and development partners for this tool. He will speak about the Nigerian Integrated Energy Tool and the layers of data and depth of insight it offers. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks very much. And it's an absolute pleasure to be with everyone today, sharing the Integrated Energy Planning Tool. And it's been an honor to work with the Nigerian government, with SEforALL, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Alliance on developing this. I'm going to walk you through a brief introduction to the tool to talk about what the objectives were, how we developed it, and some of the interesting insights that come out of it, and give you a very brief preview at the end of what you'll get much more detail later today, which is how interactive the tool itself is, which is one of the things that we're super excited about. So as a starting point, Damilola has expressed some of the context that you've heard on the left-hand side. Nigeria has actually had several efforts to develop different electrification modeling tools over the last few years, some of them when Damilola herself was MD of the Rural Electrification Agency. But typically there are several limitations to these sorts of tools. The first is the data gets quickly outdated. The second is that they're typically not open access to everyone who's trying to get access to the information and the results. The third is they typically do not include clean cooking. And then the last is there's a whole range of other productive energy uses, and in particular, the productive use of health sensors is one that we really dive down on, which is often not included. So the objectives of this tool and this effort was to try and solve for some of these limitations, and to try and develop a new tool that enabled us to be more comprehensive, more integrated, and actually really get into some of the healthcare elements as well. And again, one of the things that we're particularly excited about is the usability and accessibility for external stakeholders. Ultimately, the core part of the tool is to determine least cost technology mixes, first for electrification and then for clean cooking. And there are a range of different elements that have to go into that. And you'll see on the left-hand side the different elements that we try to establish as objectives in our modeling and our analytics. So starting with really understanding what the energy demand was of the unelectrified population, figuring out the least cost technology mix, and the least cost technology mix from a electricity access point of view, but then also the options around clean cooking as well. Understanding the co-benefits related to health, climate, the environment, which were all critical. And then lastly, figuring out the numbers, figuring out how much all of this is actually going to cost, which is always critical. The various different data sets, and this is just a small fraction of the different data sets that have gone into this tool that you see here. What's particularly exciting is these data sets layer on each other and enables significant potential analysis. And so you see here things like electrification levels, population levels, grouping of settlements, grid location, solar irradiation. We added in income per capita, we added in potential adoption rates, we added in female literacy, we added in built environment infrastructure. There's a whole range of different elements that are embedded in the tool, which then increases the capacity and viability of the tool to be functional and useful. In terms of the methodology, if I go through it relatively quickly, we start with defining the set of unelectrified households. Even that is not straightforward because there's not a single data set that defines that. We then move to figuring out what the potential demand from those households would be. And then we look at what are all the different potential energy generation sources that are out there that could be used. We then look at which is the optimal technology per settlement. And finally, we then looked at the non-residential energy requirements, factoring in agricultural use, public institutions, and a range of other elements. One of the things that was particularly interesting is to actually see the results change when you include clean cooking in as well, because when you embed clean cooking and in the future you have some degree of electricity-based cooking, that then changes the results on the actual tool and switches some people from a least cost grid, mini grid technology to a least cost grid technology, which I'll get into as well. We look at the high level results, and all of this information is going to be available through the various different sites that Damilola will talk about. At a high level, there's a couple of key numbers that are particularly important. I think the starting one is that we're talking a $25.5 billion investment required to achieve universal access. And so that's investment in grid strengthening, it's investment in mini grids, in solar home systems, and grid extension. You see that effectively about 5 million households are connected via solar home systems. You see that just over 5 million households are connected through grid extension and increasing grid penetration. And you see nearly 9 million households connected on a least cost basis through mini grid connections. And so this is at the highest level where the numbers stack up. Here you see, on the left, you see some sort of visual outputs of the model, which you see the solar home system locations in green, the grid locations, grid extension locations in yellow, and then the mini grids in red. And you can see the different elements and how they come together. So I spoke about the three numbers before. The total cost of new connections in areas currently unconnected is $23 billion. There's an additional $2.5 billion required from a grid densification point of view. And ultimately, this is about how we get to 2030. And so the total population is bigger than the unconnected population today, driven by the fact that we're obviously experiencing population growth as well. The second big dimension we looked at was clean cooking. And this again is also quite exciting. And we in particular looked at three different sources of potential cooking. So LPG, so propane, e-cooking or electric cooking, and biogas. And one of the most critical elements that we analyzed in here was actually affordability and propensity to adopt. And we used indicators related to income per capita in different locations, but then also we looked at female literacy as a indicator of propensity to adopt. And we see that it's going to take a lot more than just asking the communities to do it themselves if we want to actually get to universal clean cooking from that perspective. But what we do see is that we see significant potential demand of whether it's the propane, whether it's electricity, or whether it's liters of biogas that's then actually created for use in clean cooking. Then lastly, again, one of the things that, as I said, we're particularly excited about is the ability of this tool to be accessible and used. And so not just something that people can look at, but people can actually start getting their hands on and pulling data and pulling information out. And so there's four key elements to this. The first is that this is publicly available, linked on SEforALL and some Nigerian government websites as well. Second is the data is at high levels of granularity, so you can look at it from a macro perspective, and then you can dive down very deep into individual settlements, which is incredibly important, and actually from the perspective of the private sector is particularly useful. The third is that we try to create a user experience, and you'll see it in some of the examples that we'll show later. We try to create a user experience that really matches what people are looking for. Again, whether it's the private sector, whether it's the public sector, whether it's healthcare, infrastructure, this is data and this is information that anyone can use and should be able to use. And then lastly, there will be continued support so that this is updated through our partners in this effort frame who've been invaluable in putting this together and helping to make sure that this is an effective and capable tool that can be something that will be used across the country in the future. So that's the high-level introduction. Again, really appreciate the collaboration that we had with the Nigerian government and SEforALL, and then the support from Rockefeller on the Alliance. Damilola, back to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. I think that just brings a flavor of just how much work and effort that has gone into it. I'm particularly excited about the clean cooking element because I think for too long we've been planning electrification without clean cooking and not supporting the whole energy access agenda. We're going to have a video on the tool coming up a bit later on, so you'd actually see what it can do in action. But without further ado, I'm very happy to have the Minister of Power here. Engineer Abubakar Aliyu, to join us and to discuss and speak about the experiences in the power sector and the importance of achieving several sustainable development goals. Over to you, Minister Aliyu.
Thank you for this opportunity to make some remarks. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is online, I guess, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, SAN, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, Mr. Ricardo Politi, Vice President for Infrastructure, World Bank, Mr. Godi J.D. Agba, Honorable Minister of State for Power, my colleague, Mrs. Sharon, my colleague from the Environment, Mr. Rajiv Shah, President of Rockefeller Foundation, Mr. Ahmed Sahijo, MD, Rural Electrification Agency, senior government officials on the platform, overseas and in Nigeria, participants in this event, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It gives me great delight to be here with you today to discuss the strategic and central role of the power sector plays in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It has been discussed in many meetings and accepted that there cannot be any achievement across the SDGs without frontally addressing the need of power and energy. The Sustainable Development Goals, also known as Global Goals, were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the environment, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. There are 17 goals, and SDG 7 speaks to affordable and clean energy at 2030. The 17 SDGs are integrated because an action in one area will affect outcomes in others, and the development must balance economic, social, and environmental sustainability. As a starting point, I'm sure we all know that energy is vital to all human activities and indeed critical to social and economic development. Access to power and energy opens many new opportunities and enables us meet the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. This laudable goal cannot be accomplished without access to affordable energy services. Energy is the engine for production of goods and services across all economic sectors, namely agriculture, industries, transportation, commerce, to mention a few. It is equally vital for the provision of basic civil services like healthcare, clean water, sanitation, access to education, and much more. It is proven fact that the more nation has access to energy, the more its GDP. The value of energy derives from its ability to heat, illuminate, and create mobility. Technology plays a vital role in its ability to provide a critical link between energy services and access, affordability, and environmental compatibility. Power availability with the right technology is a trigger that enables all other 16 SDGs to become actionable. This establishes the central roles of power and energy in achieving the SDG and other SDGs. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the central role energy plays as an enabler of the other SDGs necessitate energy planning. Energy planning for sustainable growth is very vital as it enables government put the needed resources in the right places to engender growth and development. process of energy planning involves the estimation of future energy demands and the identification of a mix of appropriate sources to meet this demand. This mix must therefore emerge from a rational procedure in which various energy generation and or saving options are evaluated. Demand for a specific source of energy is based on the services for which it is required, the extent to which such services are spread among the population, the efficiency with which they can be delivered, and how cost-effective such energy source will be. Energy planners must think of the right technology more than the power plant, motor vehicles, and appliances. They must consider infrastructure like buildings, settlement patterns, roads, and transportation systems. Technology choices must be linked to the laws and regulations that reflect national capabilities, social preferences, and cultural backgrounds. The concept of energy planning and sustainable development rests on three pivotal pillars, namely economic, social preference, and environment. All these are held together by effective government laws, policies, and strong institutions. Energy planners must therefore pay attention to the depleting of finite energy sources like coal, crude oil, and natural gas, and balance it with the need to explore investment in renewable alternative sources. At the recently concluded 26th Conference of Parties, COP26, held in Glasgow, UK, in November 2021, Nigeria committed to net zero carbon emission by 2060. This is ambitious but achievable. Combining this commitment with the UN SDGs, it is clear that all hands must be on deck to drive towards achieving this goal. Energy and its sources is core to this commitment. It is in the light of this that Nigerian government approved the 30-30-30 policy, which commits that by 2030, our total generation will be 30,000 megawatts, and 30% of these shall be from renewable sources. We are pursuing a renewable energy mix that will optimize power availability in Nigeria. The narrative of running on 80% gas and 20% renewable energy is fast changing. We are working tirelessly to increase the hydro and solar footprint and increasing targeted investment opportunities in the country. I want to assure you that with clarity of purpose and dogged determination of this administration, we will achieve the set objective of gradual reduction of carbon emission in Nigeria. Government is responsible for the protection of its citizens, being one of its core mandates in ensuring that the social, economic, and environmental indices are not compromised, even as investment is sought in the renewable energy space. A balance is therefore needed. We are exploring this balance and at all times as we play a lead role in building compatibility within the energy system, while as fostering societal acceptance of new technologies and policies. Reform is not a single event, but a journey, and a power sector reform plan, PSRP, is designed to bring about transformational changes that is led by government and supported by all sector players, multilateral agencies, and Nigerians as a whole. The federal government's plan to diversify its power sources may understandably be perceived as slow. However, nothing good comes easy. The attention government has given and funds that have been channeled to renewable energy sources points to the commitment of government. And I make bold to say that Nigeria is finally at the end of the tunnel regarding renewable penetration and sources. Look at the future gives room for greater optimism and hope. It is important to highlight at this juncture the need to involve relevant ministries, namely power, petroleum resources, environment, and water resources in evolving a comprehensive and robust integrated energy planning tool. I am convinced that this action of engaging the relevant stakeholders will produce a far-reaching and all-inclusive planning tool. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish to again reiterate that power and indeed energy is central to the actualization of the SDGs. To achieve tangible outcomes, particularly attention must be given to integrated energy planning. It gladdens my heart to observe that Sustainable for All collaborated with the Nigerian government in 2021 to develop an updated Nigerian integrated energy plan. The integrated energy planning tool is a platform that gives tremendous insight into the opportunities for expanding energy access in Nigeria. This tool includes parameters for electrification, both at the household level, providing data on clean cooking, and at institutional level, powering productive uses, providing healthcare electrification, and other public services. This data is meant to give is meant to provide a least cost electrification that allows for a prioritization of energy infrastructure deployment. I believe that a conscious attention to the energy pathway in Nigeria and a deliberate implementation of the integrated energy plan will lead to the actualization of all LDGs and nationally determined continuous NDC within acceptable and committed timeline. I look forward to continued collaboration between the Nigerian government and Sustainable Energy for All, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, so that together we can achieve universal energy access for Nigeria by 2030. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister of Power, for that comprehensive, detailed layout of exactly the energy sector in Nigeria, but more importantly, the way we are integrating energy. As you said, we're ready for business, and I'm excited that everybody and the participants on this call also hear this. I would move promptly along to the Minister of State on Power, Minister Godi Jedi Agba. Please, could you speak and tell us your remarks?
Excellencies and distinguished participants, our mandate is clear. We must provide reliable and sustainable energy for all Nigerians. Through various initiatives, we have been working towards this objective. In addition, through our solar power rollout initiatives in rural and underdeveloped communities.
I can't hear you very well. I'm trying to improve the...
We are trying to do this. Can you hear us now, Minister? Can you hear us now? Oh my God, there are problems.
Honorable Minister of State, please continue. We'll deal with the Honorable Minister.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
In addition, through our solar power rollout initiatives in rural and underserved communities focused on productive uses, we are also creating jobs by boosting small-scale businesses and allowing local entrepreneurs to do business with greater ease. While the integrated energy planning tool gives us the data and insights required to develop strategic low-cost plans, we recognize that there is also a significant financial implication for us. For these connections to support universal electrification, there will be an estimated $20 billion of upfront capital investment required. We will continue to work with the World Bank and the development financial institutions and donor agencies to ensure the adequate funding is secured to give a boost to Nigeria's energy sector by improving access, performance, reliability, and affordability. I want to thank Sustainable Energy for All, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet for supporting the federal government of Nigeria in launching this integrated energy planning tool for Nigeria. This platform will play central role in helping the public and private sector work together to close the efficient electrification gap and deliver universal access aligned with the global 2030 target. I thank you for listening. Over to Dami.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister of State, and thank you for emphasizing just how much funding is required and the need for collaboration between public and private partnerships. So thank you for those remarks. I'm now going to move on to Ricardo from the World Bank, the Vice President of Infrastructure, who's going to give his remarks.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Honorable Minister of Power, first and foremost, thank you, Your Excellency, for extending the invitation to the World Bank Group to attend this event. I also take this opportunity to congratulate the government on the launch of the Integrated Energy Planning Tool. Your Excellency, the latest SDG 7 tracking report finds that Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for over 3/4 of the global deficit in electricity access. The 2 years of COVID-19 have negatively impacted global effort to increase access. The report states that during these 2 years, increase in access will lag population growth. Nearly 90 million people still lack access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity, where Nigeria is now the world's largest energy access deficit. There is no doubt that if we are to meet the SDG 7 goals of universal access to electricity and clean cooking globally, Nigeria will be central to meeting this target. To achieve universal access by 2030, Nigeria will need to electrify 2 million households every year. This effort will need a coordinated strategy and its implementation by all stakeholders involved, be it development partners, the government, civil society, private businesses, distribution companies. All have to contribute if we are to achieve an exponential growth curve and reverse the tide to achieve universal electrification. A piecemeal method for expanding access will no longer suffice, and there is a need for an integrated planning approach. An ideal integrated planning approach would combine the more conventional demand analysis, least cost generation, and power flows-based planning with the innovative GIS, digital, big data planning tools. The Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning is the step in the right direction, providing a GIS-based tool to all stakeholders and investors, helping them make more informed decisions on expanding access. At the World Bank, we are especially heartened to see the tool incorporate clean cooking and explicitly make the link between energy and healthcare. With only 13% of the population having access to clean fuels and technology for cooking, we face an enormous challenge. Electricity role as a key enabler of healthcare has come into sharp relief during the pandemic. We believe also that data-driven integrated planning tools, such as the integrated planning tool we are discussing today, will enable governments to focus on energy as a driver of development. This approach encourages human capital formation through electrification of schools and health facilities. It also allows for planners to incorporate innovative models to increase access to electricity that transforms income-generating activities for the Nigerian people and advancing their livelihoods. All these innovations on energy access need to be sustained while pursuing the integrated implementation of broader sector reforms under the Nigeria's own Power Sector Recovery Program. We are delighted that the IEP tool is open source and available to all stakeholders. The benefit of a tool such as the IEP is that it allows planning to be a more dynamic rather than static exercise as in the past. To ensure that these tools remain relevant in today's big data and rapid technological advancements, they need to be regularly updated at least every 6 months. Your Excellency, the World Bank remains committed to support Nigeria as it moves forward towards universal access. Smart integrated planning and access to electricity is at the core of the government's projects supported by the World Bank Group, such as the National Electrification Project and the Electricity Transmission Project, with almost $1 billion financing from the World Bank, designed to further leverage private sector funding and collaborate with other agencies like the Sustainable Energy for All and the Global Solar Alliance. We look forward to deepening our partnership with all agencies through the platform provided by the Integrated Energy Planning Tool. This decade is central to achieving universal access in Nigeria, where we are deeply committed across the whole World Bank Group to partner with government in achieving this vision. Let me again thank you, Your Excellency and Excellencies and colleagues, for inviting the World Bank, and please accept my compliments on the launch of the EAP. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, and thank you for the support of the World Bank just through all our energy sector reforms in Nigeria. I think it's also an important point that Ricardo places, the fact that it's open source means it's available to anybody to be able to use and integrate. And at this junction, I think it's also important to note that the World Bank is also a critical partner in the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, which is really driving the forces of really tackling energy access in some very, very large developing economies. Next, I would like to introduce one of the women I'm most excited about, the Minister of State for Environment, Minister Sharon. Minister Sharon has been championing the cause of the energy transition and also part of helping us join in with UN Energy as one of the theme champions on the energy transition campaign. So over to you, Minister Sharon.
Well, thank you very much, Dami. Your Excellencies, the Vice President of Nigeria, distinguished participants, my colleague ministers, those of the two ministers of power. I'm actually very happy to be here. We all recall that at COP26 last year, our president announced the country's commitment to achieving net zero by 2060. But our pathway to net zero will first of all have to involve ensuring universal energy access for all by 2030. And this includes ensuring every person in Nigeria has access to clean cooking solutions. It's absolutely unacceptable that indoor pollution caused by unclean cooking fuels leads to premature deaths. And this mostly affects women and children every year in our country. On our current trajectory, Nigeria would have to have over 40 million households, still cooking with emission-intensive and polluting cooking methods by 2030. This is clear that action must be taken, and this is what we are discussing here today. So I'm very delighted to be at this launch of the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool, which for the first time provides a database perspective on the opportunities for expanding clean cooking. The analysis also has shown us affordability, the likelihood of adoption of new cooking technologies, and other parameters that would help us deliver an optimal mix of clean cooking solutions in an efficient and cost-effective manner. According to this plan, the potential for clean cooking solutions is 3.7 households for LPG, 3.5 million households for electric cooking, and 4.3 million households for biogas. This is a type of planning tool that we require to help us bridge the clean cooking gap by 2030. The Ministry of Environment, the Federal Ministry of Environment, is ready to support the implementation of the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool as part of our contribution to meet Nigeria's climate change obligations and energy needs. So this tool is very important for us to actualize our energy access and clean cooking targets. So I would like to urge all stakeholders and various line ministries, who are involved to show commitment and cooperation for us to deliver on the desired outcomes. So I would like to thank His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yomi Osibajo, for inviting me to this launch of the tool and allowing me to share my thoughts on the importance of clean cooking and power. I thank also my sister, Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, my colleagues, the two ministers of power, and also not forgetting the MD of Rural Electrification, Ahmad Salijan, for their drive and commitment to this project. Finally, a big thank you and my gratitude I extend to the Rockefeller Foundation, Sustainable Energy for All, the Energy Alliance for People and Planet that I call the alliance made in SDG 7. And of course, McKinsey as well. I thank you all for being part of this tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. And thank you for putting that particular focus on clean cooking, which affects so many people around the world. I'd like to hand over to someone that's been named quite a lot with his initiatives from the Rockefeller Foundation and the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, Dr. Rajiv Shah, the president of the Rockefeller Foundation, for his remarks.
Thank you, Damilola, and thank you to Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, the Deputy Secretary General, and Adam and others that have been an important part of this effort. I'm excited to be here with you and to celebrate the launch of this tool. I think this tool demonstrates some basic realities. The first reality is that with strong and committed political leadership, you can identify what it will take to achieve universal electrification. In this case, for Nigeria, one of the world's most important countries and economies, it will take 20 million new connections, nearly 20 million new connections, and nearly $26 billion of initial investment in order to achieve that baseline goal that the Vice President, the President have set with such conviction and commitment. Second, we know that with technology and science and innovation as represented by the application of this tool, we can achieve that goal of universal electrification in Nigeria using primarily green electrification strategies. We see now, thanks to the application of this outstanding tool and the analysis that's come from it, that is in fact the lowest cost way to allow for truly productive power to reach most Nigerians who currently don't have access to the appropriate level of productive power for consumption, growth, and opportunity, and for raising their living standards. And third, we are setting an example, and I want to congratulate our Nigerian colleagues in particular for showing the rest of the continent and the rest of the world that in fact rigorous analysis can yield a strategy and a vision for how to achieve universal electrification. It is simply inappropriate and inequitable for so many countries to house 3.6 billion people on this planet who consume less than 1,000 kilowatt hours of consumption per year, which is often on a national level considered the minimum threshold for universal productive electrification. That compares to the United States, for example, that consumes 12,000 kilowatt hours per capita per year. And we have to make sure, even as we tackle climate change, that we end that very simple inequity that holds back billions of people on this planet. And I want to congratulate our Nigerian leaders and partners for effectively showing the rest of the world how, in fact, that can be done in a thoughtful, safe, and appropriate manner that is also representing good stewardship of funds. The Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, which has been mentioned a few times in this discussion, will stand with you in Nigeria and will stand with other countries as we seek to, together with Sustainable Energy for All and under Damilola's leadership, to bring every single person on this planet into a modern energy future where they can consume enough electricity to grow their economy and their community and their living standard, and do so in a way that protects our planet and in fact binds us closer together. So thank you, Damilola, for having me. Congratulations once again. And I'm just honored to be a small part of this important milestone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah, especially for your continuous support of the Nigerian energy transition. I'm now going to move on to one of my favorite energy people, the MD of the Federal Rural Electrification Agency, Ahmed Salihijo, to give his remarks as the implementing agency for a lot of these plans.
Your Excellencies, the Vice President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellencies, the Honorable Ministers here present, Your Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, other distinguished participants from the Rockefeller Foundation and the World Bank and the McKinsey Group. Thank you very much for coming here today. The Rural Electrification Agency supports the federal government's electrification initiatives by catalyzing the off-grid market to increase electricity access to rural and unserved communities through public and private sector engagements. Off-grid technologies allow people reliable power supply regardless of where they are in the country and regardless of where they live and what they actually do. So this strategy has allowed us to sort of drive growth in the Nigerian power sector as reiterated by previous speakers today in order for us to continue to increase energy access. So alongside the impactful NEP as mentioned by the Vice President Infrastructure of the World Bank, the REA has continued to successfully implement other programs such as the Rural Electrification Fund, which has been under the Electric Sector Power Reform Act, and also the Energizing Education Program with the Energizing Economics Program as well. And of course, the flagship program of the Economic Sustainability Plan, which is the Solar Power Niger program. So these are some of the programs that we have been able to implement in the last few years. So we know that investing in energy infrastructure is absolutely critical. However, the success of these programs is also heavily reliant and based on access to reliable data, which enables us to plan and implement these projects. The SEforALL has given us this sort of support with the 5 million solar home projects, solar home system program that we are currently implementing. And then according to this analysis provided through this new integrated energy planning tool for the country, mini grids represent the least cost technology for the bulk of our new connections, which are up to 8.9 million connections. And also, if productive use demand for agricultural activities are also included in this analysis, such as maize and rice milling, we find that they complement activities of the mini grids that we usually deploy, which now increases that mini grid least cost by the communities to around 200,000. So the SEforALL understands how critical data is for expanding this sort of energy access. That's why we see this new integrated energy planning tool as developed by the SEforALL in partnership with Rockefeller and McKinsey as an absolute game changer, because we are able to have access to that sort of data. Secondly, we also are able to adopt a holistic approach that incorporates electrification data alongside ensuring that we have enhanced livelihoods and other uses in addition to clean cooking. Then agencies across other government sectors can also work together, as the honorable ministers have emphasized, to continue to implement least cost plans for energy access. Then thirdly, the fact that it's also open source, which gives access to geospatial visualizations that allows us to determine the best locations for mini grids and other infrastructure, especially with the work that we're doing with the private sector. This would enable private sector identify suitable areas for deployment of infrastructure in order for us to close out the gap. So I'm pleased that these data sets will be updated regularly and will benefit a wide range of users who all have a common goal of achieving universal access. The platform will also play a very key role in helping us assess and deploy energy solutions to unserved populations in rural country. And I do commend the SEforALL and their partners Rockefeller Foundation, Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, for working with the Nigerian government to develop this integrated energy access planning tool. As one of the implementing agencies for the Nigerian sector, we understand the pivotal role that this will play to drive access for energy data. This tool will therefore allow us to work closely in addition to private sector, donor agencies, stakeholders, and our decisions will now continue to be backed by data-driven ideas to secure the necessary financing required to get to the universal access across the country. So I really appreciate being here today, and I look forward to working with SEforALL and your partners to ensure that we implement this project going forward. So thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
Thank you so much, the MD. As the implementing agency, this is obviously a key tool for you. We're now going to move quickly on to the video that actually demonstrates and shows everybody exactly what we've been talking about. So can we put on the video for the integrated energy planning tool, please?
As a mini-grid developer, the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool can help you identify the best locations for new developments, using a combination of indicators and data filters. Let's say that you're looking at unelectrified communities in Kano State that have at least 100 households and at least 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy demand. You can visualize these communities that match these characteristics, and then zoom in on any territory of interest. The tool can also rank locations by various indicators, such as total electricity demand, total population, and so on. You can even overlay the road network and mobile coverage data to see how well that community is connected. As an LPG provider, the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool allows you to identify potential areas to expand your services. In this scenario, the LPG data layer helps you visualize the expansion opportunity and affordability for LPG in the top 50 communities in Benue State. With desired indicators selected, you can rank the communities by LPG demand, by total population, and even by state or local government areas. You can also determine possible sites for an LPG filling station or a retail skid. As a healthcare service provider or planner, you can use the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool to identify underserved populations in the country in order to improve access to services. For instance, in the small town of Gomi in Kebbi State, you can see that there is a general hospital, a dispensary, and a basic health center. And you can also see that within a 5, 10, or 20 kilometer radius around the town, there are several settlements that do not have their own health services and rely on the health services offered in Gomi. The tool then allows you to assess whether these communities are electrified or not, which will allow you to plan the expansion of healthcare services. As a donor agency or non-profit, the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool can help provide data on program design. Let's say you are considering a program for early education in Borno State. By adding the data layer for schools in the region, you can visualize the population being served by each school, what resources exist, and what additional resources might be required. This can allow for planning new school buildings or expanding the capacity of existing schools. The electrification layer allows you to determine the level of electrification in that community. As a private financing institution, you can use the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning tool to perform due diligence on planned or proposed mini-grid sites. For instance, here in Oyo State, you are looking at a settlement designated for a mini-grid location. By looking more closely, the data can be validated based on population served, expected energy demand, the spending potential of the settlement, and other characteristics which can give your company a better idea of what your return on investment would be. As a retail consumer goods company, you can use the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning tool to gain intelligence to support expansion and grow your business into new sales territories. You can identify all rural settlements that are currently electrified, that have at least 500 households that have a minimum threshold spending of 250,000 naira per year. Using this combination of indicators and filters, your company can chart out an expansion plan. You can also overlay the road networks and mobile connectivity to see how well these settlements are connected. Log on to nigeria-iep.sd7energyplanning.org to explore more.
And it's great that you can see the video and all the great things that are done. It's now my great pleasure to introduce my boss, the Deputy Secretary General for the United Nations, Miss Amina J. Mohammed. Over to you, DSG.
Thank you very much, Damilola. And I believe that we are in the presence of our old boss, Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Excellencies, I can see our colleague, the Minister of Environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to be with you today to celebrate the launch of the Nigerian Integrated Energy Planning Tool. In this third year of the pandemic and in the third year of this critical decade of action to achieve the SDGs, I really do commend Nigeria's leadership on the climate crisis. Last year, ahead of COP26, His Excellency President Buhari sent an important signal to the world when he committed Nigeria to net zero emissions by 2060. And with today's launch, Nigeria is showing how to manage a smooth, secure, and just energy transition that puts people at its center and leaves no one behind. Globally, we have seen a surge of net zero commitments and, crucially, near-term promises to end coal and cut emissions deeply in the 2020s. These pledges are the easy part. We must now try to implement them. And that is why, in his latest address to the UN General Assembly, outlining his priorities for the year, the Secretary General has called for an avalanche of action in 2022 to address the climate crisis. Nigeria is rising to the occasion. Net zero is the clear direction of travel, and Nigeria has followed that promise with progressive legislation designed to implement their vision, becoming the first major developing country to commit to setting annual carbon budgets. Of course, electrifying 5 million households by 2023, as Nigeria has targeted, will not be easy. This tool is a major step in the right direction. It is best in class, covering both electrification and clean cooking. A strong reliance on renewable energy is crucial to expanding access to stable and affordable energy, while avoiding the brutal fluctuation of fossil fuel prices today and becoming overburdened by stranded assets tomorrow. The government of Nigeria has a bold vision for closing its energy access gap while transitioning to net zero emissions. Now, crucially, this vision has the means for implementation. Colleagues, let me be frank, time is of essence. We have sped past 1 degree of warming, and the suffering that vulnerable people already face is immense, and it is deadly. At COP26, countries agreed to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach, but we are still way off track. All countries will need to step up their efforts, in particular major emitting developed and developing economies have to do much more, much faster to change the math. Nigeria's reliance on science to transform their energy sector and to support the country's economic sustainability plan exemplifies the innovation, leadership, and partnership that is needed for cutting global emissions by 45% below the 2010 levels this decade. I'd like to thank all partners and agencies involved in creating this tool. Collaboration will be essential. The transitions will be key, but they do have to be just, and we do have to speak to many of the transition fuels that will be required for countries like Nigeria to achieve its own aspirations, at the same time keeping in step with the ambitions of a 1.5-degree world. But only by working together across borders, between sectors, will we build the world that we want and so urgently need. Thank you for inviting me to this really important launch.
Thank you so much, Deputy Secretary General, for your leadership and commitment to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals and keeping the 1.5-degree alive and a reality to everybody. I now have the great honor to introduce His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who will offer his remarks and the official launch to the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool. Your Excellency, over to you.
Mrs. Damilola Ogunbiyi, General, Hajia Mohammed and colleagues, Madam Deputy General, for your special remarks and your support for our government's efforts in closing energy access gaps. We accept entirely your call for a focus on actionable plans, and our government is committed to taking actions necessary that will bring electricity and clean cooking to all of our population. Providing clean, sustainable, and reliable energy access is tied to almost all of Nigeria's development goals. We've proved that transforming our energy system is a national priority through our economic sustainability plan, and most recently with our President Muhammadu Buhari's announcement at COP26 in Glasgow for Nigeria's commitment to net zero emissions by 2060. So this net zero ambition is critical to the global energy transition. However, we face, and that's Nigeria, face other challenges, including lifting 100 million people out of poverty within a decade and driving economic growth, bringing modern energy services to the full population, and managing long-term job loss in the oil sector that will result from global decarbonization. So our plans and our actions must address these various dimensions, and this remains a challenge, that whatever plans, whatever actions we have must address all of the various challenges and the various dimensions of the challenges that we have. The question is, what will it take for Nigeria to achieve net zero, and what are the pathways and timelines required to balance emissions reductions with economic development? To answer that, we developed a set of scenarios in our energy transition plan, which, as you know, was done with the support of Sustainable Energy for All. Based on these scenarios, we developed a roadmap to achieve net zero by 2060. The transition plan itself focuses on full electrification of the economy by 2060, including over 250 gigawatts of installed capacity and a massive build-out of renewable energy capacity. This would require a phased approach with credible milestones and targets, and includes a solar-driven capacity increase on an unprecedented scale, which would amount to about 5 gigawatts per year through to 2060. The transition to clean cooking will also require a phased approach. First, a transition to LPG-based cooking, and over time, a longer-term transition to electricity-based cooking as networks improve. Our net zero 2060 pathway also requires around $10 billion per year of funding over the next 40 years across the country's economy. And most of these will be for the power sector. The data and evidence that the energy transition plan was based on was instrumental in helping us understand the true scale of effort and resources that will be required. While the energy transition plan itself outlines our long-term pathway to net zero, we must have a more granular plan to start our journey to begin implementation today. Just yesterday, the Energy Transition Plan was considered by the Federal Executive Council, by our Federal Executive Council, chaired by Mr. President. And while approving it, the President directed that the lead ministry, the Ministry of Environment, engage with all MDAs, ministries and agencies, and stakeholders to develop a robust implementation plan. So the robust and dynamic data on the Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool that we're proud to be launching today is an important component of that effort as it begins to translate the Energy Transition Plan roadmap into concrete electrification, clean cooking, and productive use projects. It will help determine clear strategies for prioritization of regions and technology interventions towards making informed decisions that support our energy access by 2030 goals in a comprehensive manner, which further supports and complements our net zero by 2060 ambitions. This new geospatial tool not only has updated data on our population's electricity needs, including unproductive use, but also incorporates clean cooking data to guide implementation of clean cooking solutions. This, I believe, is the first and demonstrates a truly integrated energy planning approach. We've also made the tool open source so that the most robust group of stakeholders can work with us in meeting our energy needs. The analysis has shown that for Nigeria to achieve universal access to energy by 2030, we would need an estimated 9.3 million new electricity connections across the country. In addition, we would need over 11 million grid densification connections owing to population growth in settlements that currently have access to electricity. The tool also helps us decide the least cost approach to achieving these targets, which consists of 5.4 million grid connections, 8.9 million mini grid connections, and 5 million solar home system connections at a cost of $25.8 billion. Similar modeling has been done for clean cooking and productive use demand so that our energy plans are comprehensive and data-driven. The Nigeria Integrated Energy Planning Tool will be essential to our government achieving our stated goals, and I personally will ensure that our various levels and arms of government promote it and use it as broadly as possible. Setting a clear pathway to achieve our energy access and transition targets gives us an opportunity to establish a coherent narrative around what an ambitious yet feasible decarbonization effort for a developing country looks like, while also factoring in our overall socioeconomic and development aspirations. I'm also pleased that through these efforts, Nigeria can lead the way for other African countries to put forth similar commitments towards universal energy access and the clean energy transition, towards defining what a just and equitable energy transition looks like across Africa. As I mentioned earlier, this will require significant financing from a range of partners. And at this global launch, I would call on the international community to support Nigeria's transition efforts through realistic and much needed climate finance commitments. While we put forward a comprehensive emissions reduction pathway, near-term and long-term actions and milestones, our ask is for a fair exchange in terms of commitments from development partners. To close, I'd like to extend my special thanks to Sustainable Energy for All, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet for their incredibly valuable contributions in making this project a reality, and continued support from the World Bank. which should prove as a catalyst for energy development and improving the lives of Nigerians. On behalf of the government of Nigeria, we look forward to continuing our collaboration. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I just wanted to note that His Excellency is actually out of the country in transit and stopped everything to take these remarks, which just shows how important the universal energy access and, more importantly, the energy transition is to Nigeria. So I'm so grateful for all your inspiring words, all your facts and all your figures. The tool is now available. Please, it's a dynamic tool that we will be updating periodically. So please share your experiences, tell us what you need, and we would be inputting that. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating, especially my UN colleagues and family, the Nigerian government for being such wonderful partners, and just everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to your feedback on the Nigerian Integrated Energy Planning Tool.